right, everyone. Welcome to another episode of our Secure Dental Podcast, where we bring in many different individuals from both inside and outside our dental industry. And this podcast for today has been sponsored by Dentvia. Dentvia is a virtual dental administration company that helps our front desk staff and our managers to assist them with the back end task. So definitely visit them at www.dentvia.com. Once again, it's www.dentvia.com. So today we have a special guest, Belinda Lau. She is a CEO and co-founder of ELIMS. ELIMS meaning like spelled the smile word smile spelled backwards. I just learned that right now. So that is so amazing. It's a science-driven, sustainable oral care company on a mission to reimagine oral care with effective yet clean ingredients and plant-friendly design. This is something which we find very, very difficult to find these days. And what you're doing here, Belinda, it's amazing. She is a former biomedical and materials science engineer and holds dual degrees from Carnegie Mellon University and has over 20 years of experience with life-saving medical devices back in her old life with insulin pumps and spinal implants. And today, she is the CEO of ELIMS. Now let's dive right in, Belinda. Let's talk about it.
Let's do it.
What was your life like before ELIMS?
Well, I guess going way back, my parents came from Southeast Asia. They were born and raised in Burma, and they actually moved to Canada right before I was born, and didn't have anything. My father tells me the story about how he had 20 US dollars in his pocket, and when he went to the Thailand airport, he bought a drink, and that cost $6, and so he actually came to the US with just 14 US dollars and really built a life really with nothing, just with his grit and his own hands. And so with me and my siblings, we actually grew up in my mom's shop. She had a little gift shop in downtown Vancouver, and that was really our first taste of what I know now to be business acumen. So, when we were very little, every weekend, every summer break, every Christmas break, people are going to summer camp or going to their grandma's house. Me and my brother and my sister were in the shop working every single day. And, as a kid, you don't really like it, but as I'm older now, business is very natural to me. Back then when I was a little girl drawing little signs to say sale, $9.99, that's marketing. When I had to help clean out the back office, that's inventory management. When we had to, count and do the bookkeeping every day, that's finance, So looking back, those experiences were very valuable to me growing up. And it really gave me the sense that you can really do anything in your life if you really put your mind to it and you work hard and, you just put your head down and do the good work. So I grew up, my parents' shop, my father did very well later on in his life growing a luggage business. And so, I traveled the world with him, to get, understand more about marketing and really running a very large organization. It was about 400 people that he managed at the very, towards the end of his career. So, for me, when I looked to go to college, my father said, look, get something where you can get a job right away after you graduate. And my father was very practical and very efficient. I really wanted to go into business. And he said, business is in your blood. You don't need to go to school for that. Go and get a skill set. And so when I looked at what I was good at, I was really always good at science and math. And I thought, okay, engineering is kind of a nice way to go. And my father, really as an immigrant parent, he said, basically you can be anything you want to be as long as it's a dentist, a doctor, a lawyer, or an engineer. So I said, well, of these four options, I think the engineering route is the best for me. And I really love the biological sciences, and I really love math. And so I really, I went to Carnegie Mellon, got this dual degree in both biomedical engineering and material science engineering. And later on in my career, I was really able to combine those two those two
Nice.
backgrounds, working at Medtronic, building medical devices, because you really have to understand the science and the
Of course.
materials behind all the products. Even in the dental world, like I look at like all these composites and like the different coatings you can put on implants. Like I learned about those things like hydroxyapatite and all of those things that we coded in
Wow.
engineering school. And fast forward many years later, I am still around those same technologies. And so when I graduated college, I went to work for Medtronic for 15 years in various roles, all in product development. So some in engineering, some in program management, some in
Okay.
marketing. I was really able to experience different parts of how a business is run. And that is really the beauty of that organization, is like, if you have a passion and you're smart and you're hardworking, you can really learn different skill sets. And so I spent the majority of my career there. And then actually, eventually I wound up going to business school because I promised my dad I would get a master's degree. The child of
Hmm.
immigrants, the whole goal is to level up your kids. And no one in my family at the time had a master's degree. And
Mm.
so I wound up going back to UCLA Anderson here in Los Angeles and getting my MBA back in 2020. And really that experience gave me the confidence and sort of the passion to explore something outside of a very set role in like corporate America. And
Sure.
I always wanted to do something on my own. I always dabbled. I had like little internet businesses all through my life. And my husband is a dentist, and we kind of looked at each other one day and we're like, why don't we do something in this field? Like, why don't we
Mm.
build something? So my husband he's been a dentist for now like over 20 years. And we just felt like, both my background and his background, there's got to be something, right? There's got to be
Right.
something here between the two of us, between, medical devices and dentistry. And, when I worked at Medtronic, I
Wow.
always like felt I was very always concerned about how much waste and trash was built up by the healthcare industry. I used to
Of
go to a lot
course.
of hospital visits, and you just see these, sterile packaging, Tyvek
Hmm.
packaging, all of these autoclave bags and things like that really, build up, including all the gloves and the bibs and everything. And I always just thought, well, why can't this stuff be more biodegradable, or how can we close the loop on this waste
Mm.
problem? Because of the sterile requirement, you really need to make sure that the products work, the packaging works, and all of that stuff. Even in diabetes care, I worked in the diabetes industry for 12 years, and the
Nice.
syringes and the insulin sensors, the glucose sensors, the packaging, it all comes in as one-time use. You pop in the sensor, you throw away all the packaging. And it just always stuck in my mind. And so I just started thinking, like, how could I solve this problem, but like in a smaller chunk? Like, how can I solve it in a smaller way? And so when I looked, the dental industry was always so interesting to me. I feel like, compared to medical device, I used to work in like class 3, the highest risk products at with the FDA. And I just found the dental industry to be a little bit more of the wild, wild west. There was a bit more, because the industry is so established. There's
Right.
the FDA kind of turns a little bit of like, like a calm eye to the oral care side of things. So I thought, okay, maybe I could do something here. So just, when I was in business school, I just really started looking into how big is the market? What are the needs? I
Hmm.
started to see in the beauty and the personal care space this trend towards more sustainable packaging, more responsible ingredients, cleaner ingredients. I really wanted to learn about how to make healthcare products more sustainable. And I just thought, okay, I think I can do this in oral care. If I can do it in oral care, then I can learn and apply these learnings and apply it to all of healthcare. And so that's really where we started to think from. And we started doing our research. We wound up getting into a clean tech accelerator called the Clean Tech Open. It's the largest business accelerator for sustainable technologies. And people are building like windmills and
Sure.
electric vehicles, and here
Mm.
I am, I'm like, let's talk about toothbrushes and toothpaste tubes. So we were a little different, but because everybody in the planet needs to brush their teeth, it's a very relatable topic. As you know,
Exactly.
Dr. Liu, I'm sure you're the life of the party every time you show up because people are asking you a question about their teeth. And I think that's a very
Isn't it true? I bet your husband feels the same way, right?
Oh, he's my best party trick. I don't even need to talk because he shows up and people are asking him about dental implants and crowns and all the whole gamut of oral care
Right.
questions. So, that's where we started to really think about we sort of bona fide our business through this business accelerator.
Mm.
We won a few like of these business pitch competitions,
Oh,
and
nice.
then we had a little bit of seed
Wow.
funding, and then we actually launched during the pandemic. So we launched in 2021, and we came out with a line of products that have sustainable packaging, reduced packaging, more clean ingredients. So our hero products are nano-hydroxyapatite toothpaste with a 10% nano-hydroxyapatite. And then we have a teeth whitening product that dissolves. So it's like a crust white strip, but we removed all of the strip parts. So like the film, the plastic packaging, all of that went away when we developed a dissolving strip. So you just apply it to your teeth, it dissolves in seconds, and it's with hydrogen peroxide. So,
Oh, wow.
it still works and great for sensitive teeth. So we started with these base products, and to this day we haven't raised any money by design. My husband and I
Mm.
were like, can we do this on our own? Can we build the business to fuel itself? And so far, 4 years later, we're still here, still going strong.
Great.
Unclear about these tariffs and things like that coming in,
Right.
but so far, at least in the personal care industry, when you compare us to like some of the deodorants and other personal care products, we're still
Hmm.
here. And so I'm very proud of that. I'm proud about the awards that we've won and the accolades we've gotten on a very shoestring budget. So really, that's a kudos to the dental industry and our partnerships with dental offices,
Sure.
dentists, and hygienists who try our product, who've seen what we've done, who've looked at our data and said this is a good product. And that's how we've organically grown, is really through partnerships with the dental community.
And that's the way. And I loved what you just said about like collaborating with different people, different industries as well. Because at the end of the day, I mean, when we are starting up a business or we are actually running it, we need collaboration, you know. And I really, something really resonated you just said about business is in our blood. I love it. I'm stealing that.
It's in our blood, it's in our bones.
Right, right. Go get a skill set. Business is in our blood. I mean, this is such a powerful statement, and I think it kind of resonates with a lot of immigrants that come here, right, with their parents from another country. So I think that's really really strong. So tell me, when you started this business, and how long was the transition for you from your previous place that you were working at Metron, and then you started this here? Were you like, did you start them like while you were working, or did you like quit that place?
Yeah, even worse. I was in business school full time. I was raising 3 kids under the age of 6.
Wow.
I was working full time at Medtronic, and I was starting the business. It was a very busy time of my life, and thank God my mother is healthy and she was able to
Sure.
come and help us during that challenging time. But when Dr. Lou, I think you will understand, when you are so passionate and so driven about a new project, a new idea,
Right,
something,
right.
right? Like, you cannot stop. Like, I could not stop. I was like so engulfed in the excitement of what this product, this business could be, who I could be in this process. And so even though I was very busy, it was all worth it, because number one, I was working at this fantastic company, Medtronic, where I was able to learn. Actually, during that time, I pivoted my career into operations so I
Oh,
could
wow.
learn how the business on the back end operates. So I went from engineering to marketing to operations. And then at the same time, I was in business school reinforcing some of these learnings. And then I was applying it to the business. So
Oh, wow.
I don't know if I could have done it any other way. I really gained a lot of confidence about my own abilities, because I was able to learn and apply it at the, basically at the same time. And so, even though it was a difficult time, it was very challenging. Even running the business now is very challenging. A lot of headwinds,
Absolutely.
rising costs, like competition, a lot of different things. But the grit that I learned, now when things, go wrong or there's a mistake or something, I'm not as blown up about it as I was at the
Right.
beginning of the business, because you learn. You think to yourself, when have I seen this before? When have I experienced this before? And I talk to a lot of budding entrepreneurs, people who have an idea, who want to start a business. And if that person that I'm talking to has never worked at another company, I always encourage them. These are students usually in college or in their master's program. I
Sure.
always tell them, go work for someone else for a little while, just 2 or 3 years. Learn how they do business, learn what they're doing right, learn what they're doing wrong. And that way you can apply it to your business. It's basically business school in a nutshell. And then you could
Nice.
also
I
get a
love it.
salary, fund your business. You don't have to go fundraise if you are able to take a little bit of your salary and put it into the business. I really think it's so valuable to work for someone else to see how it's done
Mm.
and apply it to your own business. So even when different things happen in at ELIMS in my current business, I go back and I think, where did I see this before in my career? Where have I seen? Where is there a time where this happened? And I
Right.
almost always have some kind of analogous story that I can apply, and the learnings that I can apply to the business. And I think that that's sort of the beauty of being an older entrepreneur. Like I don't want to age
I,
myself, but I grew up without internet. So let's just say that. And
mm-hmm.
because that, I feel like I tackle problems from a place of experience rather a place of like constant, turmoil,
Correct.
if you
Correct.
will.
You know what you just said? I think what I feel like you do have some sort of personal development that you went through during this whole time. And I can tell from your experience, from what you went through and what you're telling me, exactly what you discovered on the other side. I want you to share a little bit of the secret sauce about the grit and the work-life balance, and because people need to understand, when you're running a business or you're starting up, there's a lot at stake. You're putting your entire family
Yes.
on the line, right? So I want you to
Yes.
talk a little bit about that, because people go like, "Oh yeah, he's a guy, he can do it." But you as a female, it's like 1000% my respect to you. How did you do it with family,
I
with
really.
job and husband and
Oh,
and
yes.
parents, right? Yeah.
Yes,
How did you
yes.
do it?
Taking care of elder parents, raising kids, making sure they're growing up right. I
What was a superpower?
a super. I think it's really just there's really no secret sauce. I think for myself, I've always been a very hardworking person. I don't really need like fame. I don't need glory. I really want my kids to do well. I want them to grow up to be responsible humans. I want to maintain a happy marriage with my husband, who's also my business
100%.
partner. I want to take care of myself. Like I want to run marathons. I want to, be able to work out and, feel healthy in my body and be nourished. It is a lot of planning and it's a very busy life. I would say like taking care of myself and, if you're an entrepreneur out there, taking care of yourself is so important. I remember
Love it.
the first year of the business, this was during the pandemic, and we launched in July of 2021. And you turn on the website, you make your press release, and then you expect like millions of dollars to come into your business. You're like,
Right.
how come I'm not a millionaire overnight, right? And so we tried a bunch of different things. And even my husband said, how does anyone know this business exists? How does anyone know, right? Like people are so busy and consumed with their lives. How do people get awareness that we're here? And so I remember the first 6 months was so difficult. I remember being very stressed, had a
Sure.
lot of anxiety, very little sleep. We had some product issues, not product issues. We had issues importing the products, some of the products, components from the UK. We had, like we weren't getting the traction that we projected, and there was just so many things. And I remember almost having like a breakdown.
Mm.
And this is such an important thing, because what I did is I reached out to other entrepreneurs, my friends, people who
Sure.
were business owners. And that's so important. If you're an entrepreneur, you need to have a network of people who are running businesses, because even though the business is different, the size of the business is different, the products you sell is different, the experience, the anxiety, the sleepless nights, the stress, that is all the same for all of us. Running a dental practice,
They're all
very
real.
stressful, managing staff. These are all things us as business owners have to experience. And so I really encourage people to find other business owners, friends who are going through that, and call them in your time of need. You don't need to tell them that you're stressed. You don't need to tell them that you're lonely and making these decisions. You just need to call, because that's what I did. I called two of my friends, and one of them was like, stop talking about your business. I can't even talk to you right now because I can see that your mind is not in the right place. You have not
Mm.
slept. You are malnourished. You haven't exercised. All you've been doing is this business. She's like, you need to stop. Give yourself 3 weeks
Wow.
off. 3 weeks off. I said, how can I stop for 3 weeks? She's like, I don't care how you do it. Just turn it all off for 3 weeks. Take these vitamins, take your vitamins, get more than 7 hours of sleep, good sleep per night, do some
Mm.
yoga classes. Like, she gave me a prescription of basically how to just unplug. And honestly, I thought she was crazy. And I said, there's no way I could do this. But she gave me some tools. She helped me find some like people to help me out in some certain parts. And then I literally took, it wasn't a full 3 weeks, but I did take 2 weeks to unplug. And that was magical because I literally was able to think again. I was able to be
Wow.
creative again. And I remember like I had a lot of advisors and mentors at the very beginning of the business. And I remember talking to one of my advisors, and he gave me some advice. And I felt like, I was able to absorb that better, and I was able to make better decisions.
Mm.
So really, like, is there a secret sauce? Being busy, it doesn't mean that you're being successful. Really understanding what are the important things that really matter, and what needs to be done, and then having that self-awareness to be like, hey, I'm not okay. I am not sleeping. I'm not
Right.
healthy. So I'm
Right.
not making good decisions. I am not serving the business. I am not serving my shareholders because I am not showing up at 100%. So that's really it. You can have the family and the business and run the marathons and all of these things, but you really need to know when to train for the marathon, when to lean into, you can never turn the kids off,
Correct.
but there's certain times where I know now, 4 years in, that my business during the summertime is not very busy. So I can prepare for that. I can say, okay, during the summer, I can chill. And I know that the business is very busy at the end of the year, so there's certain times of the year where
Mm.
I know the business is going to need me more. So it's like, it ebbs and flows in terms of stress. So really encourage people who are, running their own business to understand those business cycles and take the time to reset and recharge when the business is, not as busy. So that's how I view life, and how I look at my superpowers, really just prioritizing and understanding what's important and what's not.
I love it. I love it. You are like a true testament of somebody so I read a lot of books, right? And I'm sure you heard of Jim Rohn and Bob Proctor and all these
Oh
guys
yes, love
from the
it.
personal development world. One of those things that really caught my attention, and this was like recently, like a few years back, they're like, you just let go. You let go and you let universe happen, and things automatically fall in place. The more you chase, the more you try to be busy, the more it runs away from you. And when I heard your story, I'm like, wow, this is exactly what you did. You unplugged yourself, and everything just started falling in place. It reminds me of that saying when they say in an airplane, when the oxygen masks come down, everybody says, right, put on yours first before you put on your next door passenger. And I think that's exactly how it is in business. You got to take care of yourself first before you can take care of your team members and the
Yes.
business.
Yeah, and find people to support you, people you trust,
Right.
people who know you, maybe within the business context, but people who really care about you regardless of the outcome of your business.
I
Right.
love
So
it.
sometimes if you have like,
Love it.
investors, they're like, oh, take care of yourself so you can make me more money. But
Right.
there's people who just really are invested in making sure, they just want to see you successful. And those are the best people, because when you
People.
call them, it's maybe once or twice a year, but when you call them, that they're going to give you some solid advice and you are going to be
And
better for making that phone call. So
you may
I
or may not
really,
like it, right?
yes, exactly. It's so important to have that network,
Right.
that support.
So let's talk about your business right now. The products you're making. You said something about in there about plant friendly. It's very efficient, very economical in a sense that it's not, like it's very planet friendly, right? Let's talk about that a little bit. How did you come up with that concept and what does it do exactly?
Yeah, exactly. So, it's so interesting. We actually started just to look at the sustainability aspect of oral care. Like when you go in the dental office, you have to shrink wrap the entire room just to do like one,
Right.
one hygiene check, right? The gloves and the bibs and like all of that stuff. And so we started from that aspect and we realized, there's actually a lot of advancements in that kind of technology for materials, everything from biodegradable to like bio-based, which is sourced from like plants and things like that. So I was very encouraged in, 2019 to see a lot of this technology already existing. And then for us to like find a way to apply it to the dental industry. So I really like that. And then along the way, we interviewed, I want to say we interviewed 400 dental professionals and, thousands of consumers through surveys and interviews. And people were just all kind of saying like, can we get the chemicals out of our oral care products? And, everything is a chemical. And you and I are
Exactly.
scientists, so we understand that. The concept was, in the beauty and the personal care industry, they were removing a lot of these sort of like fragrances, artificial flavors, artificial scents and things like that, dyes. When sometimes you open a tube of kids' toothpaste, you see these little sparkles. Oh, that's a microplastic right there. And you want my kid to put that in their mouth? Like
What's that?
we
Right.
just we just started
Right.
looking at some of these, red toothpaste, blue toothpaste, and it's like, is that really necessary? And we realized that you can't pronounce half of those things. Even I, as an engineer with a material science background, I didn't know what half of those things, 90% of those things were. So I said, can we create products with ingredients that you could actually pronounce, which means that the consumer, and even for myself and for my children, I understand what's going into our bodies.
Wow.
And so we started dissecting, toothpaste, teeth whitening products, and then really just saying, what are the essentials? What does this thing need to do? And of course, Casey, my husband, from a dental perspective, he's like, I want the tricalcium phosphate, I want hydroxyapatite, I want xylitol. Like these are all ingredients that have a lot of scientific background that we could apply. And specifically nano-hydroxyapatite. I love this product because it is the ultimate fluoride alternative. And I'm still a fan of fluoride. It's still the gold standard. If you ask the ADA, they'll tell you fluoride is the gold standard. There's a lot of data behind it. And I do believe topical fluoride is extremely effective. And I don't shy away from it. But what I love about nano-hydroxyapatite, at a 10% concentration, it has been proven to have the same level of remineralization as stannous fluoride.
Nice.
And so when you look at that, what is this? What is hydroxyapatite? And as a material engineer and a biomedical engineer, I'll tell you, I geek out about this because hydroxyapatite is just what your bones and your teeth are naturally made of. Right? So when you crush it up into a nano form and then you apply it on a paste to your teeth, it just replasters the surface of your enamel.
Okay.
And I didn't invent it. I'm not going to take credit for that. It was actually invented by NASA in the 1970s because when these astronauts go into space for 3 months or more missions, the gravity makes them have bone loss, especially in their teeth. So they're coming back with like weakened teeth and weakened bones. And also, if you get a cavity in space, you still can't see a dentist in space. It may be coming in the next couple of years. Right. Maybe Dr. Liu, you'll be the first and, go to space and be the first space dentist. But, you can't see a dentist in space. And so,
That's
these
crazy.
astronauts,
Nobody even thinks about those things.
Nobody thinks about it.
No.
You get a cavity, you get a toothache in space. Ooh. That's a bad trip. You're out there for years, potentially. So NASA invents hydroxyapatite in a toothpaste form to help remineralize the teeth in the surface of the teeth. And, some people on your podcast might be saying like, oh, well, how come I haven't heard about this ingredient in the US? And that's because a Japanese company in the 1980s bought the patent. And so in Japan and Korea, it's been used for the last 40 years. It's wonderful. You go to Japan and at least half of their toothpaste have hydroxyapatite. It is so wonderful. And so that's why there's such a wealth of data behind it, because it's really been studied for a very long time. And so we're one of the few companies in the US that actually have the 10% concentration, which is equivalent to the fluoride remineralization. And the benefit of the remineralization is actually it helps with sensitivity. Super good for sensitivity because it's really like a coat of armor for your teeth.
Okay.
And so for some people like myself, I've used a very specific brand of toothpaste that claims it was for sensitivity. And I used it for 10 years. I'm not kidding. And I still had sensitivity.
Right.
And when I switched over to nano-hydroxyapatite toothpaste, I found that my sensitivity went away in like 2 weeks. So I thought, okay, this is amazing. And when I found out it was completely biocompatible, I mean, my husband tells his patients, with our toothpaste, it's all natural, all food grade ingredients, yet effective. It's so natural. You could spread it on toast in the morning and then eat it for breakfast. I mean, literally you can ingest it and it's absolutely no issues. All our ingredients are food grade. It's actually technically pharmaceutical grade, which is a higher grade compared to food grade, but we always say food grade because that's something that people can understand.
Something people understand and relate.
Yeah, so that's really important because kids, especially, as you know, they swallow their toothpaste.
Of course.
And then you and I, whenever we brush our teeth, that toothpaste is going into our bloodstream through the gum line. So that's very important to me to make sure that we have something that, number one, is it effective? Does it actually work? So check one. Number two, is it safe? Is it safe? Is it good for us? And then number three, can we make this sustainable? So all our products have to hit on these three pillars. And then we put some cute packaging and branding around it. You talked about our brand name. ELIMS is the word smile backwards. Those cute little hidden brand things is very personal to us. So, we try to do these things to really encourage people to enjoy the brushing experience, to want to brush their teeth, want to floss their teeth and take care of their teeth. And then once they feel good about their health and all of that stuff, they really feel good about their place in the world. So that's really our mission, is to make people healthier and reduce the waste. And when you do all that stuff, we feel like we'll have better outcomes as a society, and that's my macro dream for this little toothpaste company, to like help position everyone to feel better about themselves.
Oh, I love it. Just the fact that you said it takes away sensitivity. I think that's just not only you, but with many, many other people. So so I think this is a huge plus.
Yeah.
So now,
it really
is it
wasn't
safe?
like the focus of the products initially.
Like a side effect, right?
Yeah, it actually came out after.
Like a byproduct.
We obviously we test all our products, but it's very hard to test for sensitivity. But our customers kept coming in and were like saying, like, "Man, my sensitivity's gone just in a few weeks." And we started looking into it. Yeah, we're like, it really does work. And so the same thing with our teeth whitening strips. They're actually made for sensitive teeth. So we actually won Forbes magazine named our teeth whitening strips the best teeth whitening strips for sensitive teeth, because when you apply it, it's got all these great ingredients and things like that, but like you don't feel no sensitivity on your teeth, even though we're using a 7% hydrogen peroxide, which is a pretty high concentrate for an at home, not a professional grade, but at home, right, whitening product. So that's where we really come and see, like, hey, can we take what the industry standard is and then make it a little bit better, reduce the waste, clean up the ingredients a little bit, but give a better experience to the consumer so they feel good about what they're using.
That's awesome, because when we talk about whitening equals sensitivity.
Yeah.
And you are saying your product is whitening is for sensitivity. So I mean,
and we always encourage people to use the hydroxyapatite toothpaste along with it to remineralize the teeth, right? That hydroxyapatite is depositing white calcium to your teeth, so your teeth actually appear to be whiter and smoother. It's really weird. The surface of your teeth feel more smooth. It's just like a funny byproduct, but it works. And so then there's no way bacteria can stick if it's like sliding off your teeth.
After this podcast, I'm the first customer to go back and get one.
Take a look. Yeah.
I will for sure. I love it.
Product.
I'm sure. So is it safe to say that those nano-hydroxyapatite crystals are a safe replacement for fluoride?
Yeah, it's. I mean, I'm not saying that, but the
I mean,
data shows that.
in
Yeah, the
terms of
data
what it
shows that.
does,
Yeah, the
right?
data. You have to use it at least a 10% concentration.
A
Some
10%. Okay.
toothpaste brands don't actually say their concentration, so they've got the marketing amount. They sprinkle some in there.
Sure.
So just beware. But for the most part, it's a wonderful product. And so now we're exploring what happens if you use fluoride and hydroxyapatite. Like what happens
Mm.
then? So that's for another podcast. But
Oh,
we're
wow.
starting to see like what happens. You get even more benefits by combining the two.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, Belinda, here, I mean, appreciate you coming in. Is there anything else you would like the audience to know about you or
Well,
your product?
about me or my product. Well, I would just say like the oral care industry is evolving right before our eyes.
Sure.
5 years ago, 6 years ago, when we started the business, there wasn't a lot of these technologies that were in the market. And so I think with oral care, your toothbrush or your toothbrush brand, your toothpaste brand, people get very loyal to like one brand,
Correct.
one
Right.
type of product, right? And they just don't think. They go into Target or CVS, they just grab that same thing they've been using for years. And I just would encourage people to start looking at their ingredients, their packaging, and really understanding, like, because we have the
I
power
love
as
it.
consumers with our dollars. So really look at what is on your bathroom counter, what are your kids are using, and really think about how that impacts your health, and also how that may be impacting the planet. So that's what I would encourage people to do. And if you want to explore our products, we're here. We're here. You can find us at elims.co. It's just smile backwards and just Google us and you'll find us right there.
Yep. So it's ELIMS.co. Is that right?
Yeah. Yes, exactly right.
Perfect. Perfect. Well, thanks a lot, Belinda. This was an amazing story, and I think you have an amazing journey. You came from where you came from, and where you're heading. And I can already see, like, 4 years into it, you're in there for a long haul.
Thank you, Dr. Liu. I appreciate you saying that, especially given your background. I really do appreciate that. And I really have enjoyed our talk today. So thank you so much for having me.
No, absolutely. I enjoyed it myself. So, all right, we're going to land the plane here. Thanks a lot again. And everyone listening, make sure to like and subscribe. And we will check you guys out on our next episode.